I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch network. The MAGA Republicans in the House of Representatives are once again threatening our country, stating that they will refuse to fund the government unless the prosecutions against Donald Trump stop. I mean, how absurd is that? How dangerous is that? The MAGA Republicans in the House of Representatives are also saying that they will not fund the government unless woke policies stop, and they say they don't care about the repercussions on our economy. This is what they want to do, and they refuse to even support any interim extensions to keep the government funded after September 30th, which is the first major deadline where some sort of deal is going to have to be made to continue to fund the government, even if it's done on an interim basis. This may seem like deja vu because it is. A few months ago, the MAGA Republicans were using the raising of the debt ceiling, something that in the past was just automatic, to bring our economy on the brink to pursue their radical agenda. President Biden was able to negotiate an important deal to make sure that the American economy would remain in a growth mode and on a stable track. And now the MAGA Republicans, I guess because they're Hunter Biden nude laptop investigations are total failures, as well as everything that they've been doing. And what they have been doing, they're just going back to serving Donald Trump and trying to harm our economy. Look, this isn't hyperbole. Like, let's go into the documents that was just released by the House Freedom Caucus, is what they call themselves. They're anything but freedom. They take away freedom from people. They want big government to tell you who you can marry. They want big government to control women's bodies. That's what this entity is about. Orwellian named House Freedom Caucus. And here is what they put out in a release earlier this week. It says, "No security, no funding." And it says, "Today, the House Freedom Caucus released the following official position on the possible continuing resolution before the expiration of government funding on September 30th. Let's pause there for a second. This group, just to remind you, which is made up of Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert, they kicked Marjorie Taylor Greene out, but it's made up of some of the other very, very, very extremist MAGA Republicans, but all MAGA Republicans are extreme. It's just the degree to which these, I guess, are the most extreme. They basically control Kevin McCarthy at this point. They're the ones who held up Kevin McCarthy's speakership. They're the ones giving Kevin McCarthy orders. You go back, do the interview I did recently, take a look at it with Dan Goldman, Democratic Congress member. And as he explained, look, the Republican Party's no more. They've just become this extremist Trump cult at this point. Let's get back into the release. It says, quote, "As Congress continues to work to pass appropriation bills, we must rein in the reckless inflationary spending and the out-of-control federal bureaucracy it funds, crushing the American people. We remain committed to restoring the true fiscal year 2022 top-line spending level of $1.471 trillion without the use of gimmicks or reallocated rescissions to return the bureaucracy to its pre-COVID size while allowing for adequate defense funding." Let's just pause there for a second and address a few things here. President Biden passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which has led to the reduction of inflation. America is now leading all G7 nations in the lowest inflation. As President Biden and Pete Buttigieg, Secretary of Transportation, and others have said, this isn't a spike the football moment, but what the Biden administration has been doing has been working to actually rein in inflationary conditions that were caused based on Donald Trump's administration's recklessly printing money and their disastrous implementation of a PPP program where money just haphazardly I should probably say was more directed in corrupt forms and fashions as well, to lots of people who didn't necessarily, being generous there, need the PPP funding. And in the Trump administration, you had trillions of dollars in deficit with tax cuts for billionaires that wasn't paid for. The deficit was never higher under any other administration than with Trump. The MAGA Republicans supported the most fiscally irresponsible administration, just looking at the data. I know MAGA Republicans don't want to look at the data. Meanwhile, President Biden has reduced the deficit in his first 2 years. He reduced it by about 1.71 trillion, and then his 10-year fiscal budget would reduce the deficit by an additional $3 trillion because, unlike Trump, Biden says, okay, here is how we are going to pay for all of these things. One of the ways we're going to pay for it is that billionaires should have to pay. That's how you pay for things. You have to pay. They should have to pay their fair share. They should not be paying less in taxes than teachers and construction workers, blue-collar workers, other workers in general. That doesn't make any sense that the loopholes allowed by MAGA Republicans let billionaires basically pay no taxes. That's one of the ways President Biden is going to pay for his programs to reduce the deficit. President Biden also talks about closing lots of tax loopholes that exist as well to make sure that people pay their fair share. Meanwhile, MAGA Republicans have their view of trickle down that does not work and results in massive, massive deficits. If you just compare it, the deficit has decreased. Let's keep reading. It says, however, when Congress returns to Washington, we will have just a few days before government funding expires on September 30th, and time is rapidly running out to enact all 12 appropriation bills. Well, that's because you all left. You control the House of Representatives. Democrats don't control the House. Go back. The Democrats were saying we should stay here this summer and pass the appropriation bills. It was the arsonists now who are saying we want to fix the fire that the arsonists created, except they don't want to fix the fire. They want to make the fire worse and then further blame the Democrats for it. But go back. Democrats were saying, let's stay here. Let's pass these 12 appropriation bills. And you all went back to your district so you can rail against the woke and say how much you love Donald Trump and all weird stuff like that. Let's keep on reading.
Jewelry is having a big moment right now. And with hundreds of products popping up in your feed every day, it can be hard to find a brand you trust. Alex and Ani has been creating meaningful jewelry for over 20 years, designing pieces that connect you with all of life's important moments. With an emphasis on value, there's truly something for everyone. You might be most familiar with their signature charm bangle. This bracelet literally created the category of meaningful jewelry and had you stacking charms from your wrist to your elbow. This piece is an icon for a reason. Completely size inclusive, each bracelet is adorned with a symbol designed to tell your story and express your unique style. Beyond the bangle, you'll find stylish, affordable jewelry for every occasion, from classic pieces to bold statement looks. Don't know where to start? Alex and Ani makes it easy to unpack the trends you're after and sprinkle in your personality too. Each piece comes with a personalized message and meaning, truly making it the perfect gift. You can take comfort in knowing that you're shopping with a socially conscious brand as well. To date, Alex and Ani has donated over $60 million to nonprofits worldwide, connecting fashion and philanthropy in an easy, fun, affordable way. Visit alexandani.com right now to discover the confidence that comes with a perfectly accessorized piece of jewelry. Right now, Alex and Ani is offering our audience 20% off with code Meidas at checkout. Again, head to alexandani.com, that's alexandani.com, and use code Meidas at checkout for 20% off your order.
It says, therefore, in the eventuality that Congress must consider a short-term extension of government funding through a continuing resolution, we refuse to support any such measure that continues Democrats' bloated COVID-era spending and simultaneously fails to force the Biden administration to follow the law and fulfills its most basic responsibilities. Let's pause there. I've said before with MAGA Republicans, they love to bend the space-time continuum. If you go back to a lot of the hearings that they held, for example, they blame President Biden for things that happened in 2020. in 2019 when President Biden wasn't the president. And so they'll take things and they'll be like, that's Biden's fault. And then it takes Democratic members of Congress to ask the witnesses, who was the president that time? And so when you look at what they're saying here, bloated COVID era spending, okay, who was the president who mishandled COVID? Who started that process? And then who reined it in? Biden is someone who's been reining it in, reducing the deficit. Trump had the bloated spending. It's remarkable how there's just nothing tethered to the facts here, and the kind of Russian level, Kim Jong-un level propaganda in every sentence that I'm pulling apart here so far in this thing. Then it goes on to say, any support for a, quote, clean continuing resolution would be an affirmation of the current fiscal year 2023 spending level, grossly increased by the lame duck December 2022 omnibus spending bill that we all vehemently opposed just 7 months ago, the one that was passed by bipartisan fashion by the Senate and the House. Then it goes on to say, we will oppose any spending measure that fails to. Here are their demands. Remember they made the hostage demands before when it came to the raising of the debt ceiling? These are the new hostage demands. 1, include the House-passed, quote, Secure the Border Act of 2023 to cease the unchecked flow of illegal migrants, combat the evils of human trafficking, and stop the flood of dangerous fentanyl in our communities. Now, these are all things that are actually being more effectively addressed by President Biden than they were by Donald Trump. Since some of the Trump irrational policies have been repealed, border crossings have been down significantly. Also, when fentanyl is confiscated, that is because there is more robust procedures at the border, although MAGA Republicans always view confiscation of fentanyl as somehow an attack on President Biden. And of course, there is the fear-mongering that the way fentanyl is getting in is through migrants running around with fentanyl on their backs, when that accounts for actually a very small fraction of how fentanyl is actually getting into our country. Nonetheless, these are important initiatives that President Biden is addressing, that President Biden has policies for, that MAGA Republicans do not want to have any comprehensive immigration reform to truly deal with the issues. They want to do their performative dog and pony show where they go to the border and then they rail against it. They want to stop. Again, this is the arsonists again. They want to create the problem and then rail against the problem that they created and not put forward any actual practical solutions. Okay, 2. Demand number 2, address the unprecedented weaponization of the Justice Department and FBI to focus them on prosecuting real criminals instead of conducting political witch hunts and targeting law-abiding citizens. Just who the MAGA Republicans are referring to there is Donald Trump and the January 6th insurrectionists, who MAGA Republicans praise. They sent a congressional delegation to visit the January 6th insurrectionists and sing songs with them and chant, "Let's go, Brandon." I mean, how disgusting and humiliating is that? That's what the first congressional delegation went to hang out with January 6th insurrectionists. And then MAGA Republicans always want to say, oh, it's the FBI's attacking Catholic parents, or they're just attacking parents who want to pray, or they're attacking parents who go in front of school boards. The FBI is being weaponized to attack them. Trump and Catholics and attacking parents at school boards. They're not. Okay? There's not an example at all. 0, period, none, where the FBI is targeting people because of their religious beliefs. That's not what's happening. If somebody is an extremist and threatens to blow up a school, if somebody threatens to engage in terroristic acts and engages in criminal conduct, I know MAGA Republicans want to say, oh, you're taking away our free speech rights. Well, at that point, you're now threatening crimes, which means you're committing crimes, and there will be investigations into criminal behavior where the conduct rises to that level. Those are the instances where there have been investigations. But here they're saying they're not, let's be clear, they're saying they're not going to fund our government unless there's what legislation, unless the spending bill stops the Department of Justice from further prosecuting insurrectionists and Trump. And then here is number 3, end the left's cancerous woke policies in the Pentagon, undermining our military's core war-fighting mission. Again, this use of the term woke. America's military right now is suffering because a MAGA Republican in the Senate, Tommy Tuberville, is using his authority and power, that is ridiculous that senators even have this authority, to block the nominations of all military generals. Why? Because Tuberville doesn't like the fact that there is a Pentagon policy that pays for out-of-pocket expenses and time off for women in the military who seek reproductive care. For that reason, that's what they're saying is too woke, and they refuse, among other things, that's what they refuse to fund our government, and they refuse to allow our military to be promoted on that basis. That is, to me, I think we would all agree, utterly disgusting. Furthermore, we will oppose any attempt by Washington to revert to its old playbook of using a series of short-term funding extensions designed to push Congress up against a December deadline to force the passage of yet another monstrous, budget-busting, pork-filled lobbyist handout omnibus spending bill at year's end, and we will use every procedural tool necessary to prevent that outcome. Lastly, we will oppose any blank check for Ukraine and any supplemental appropriations bill. So doing Vladimir Putin's bidding here. This is what they're saying in their own words, folks. I'm giving you my commentary on what my opinion is on what they're saying, but let's be very clear. I just read you their words. This is the Republican agenda, which, if you want to characterize it as anything, it is an attack on our country. I don't believe there's any other way to read that. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Go to MeidasTouch.com for all the breaking news, MeidasTouch.com. Check us out as well wherever you get audio podcasts. Subscribe to the MeidasTouch podcast and have an excellent day.
Hey, Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.